Hey Zen fam, I've been thinking recently about the Robocop game we recently got. That was a very good little game, and it showed us that sometimes movie tie-in games can work when they're done correctly. Now the self-same people had done that Terminator 2 game a wee while ago, and it was alright. Wasn't the best game ever, but it wasn't the worst game ever. They came back and they did that Robocop game, which, as we all know, was roundly applauded. So, I'd like to see a studio of a similar ilk, perhaps a little bit bigger, take on the 2012 version of Judge Dredd. Oh yes, the Dredd movie from 2012. I'd like to see the video game of that. For you see, ladies and gentlemen of the Zen fam, we are probably never going to get a sequel to Dredd, which is a shame. Now, some of you out there may not have seen Dredd. Some of you may not have even seen the earlier Judge Dredd movie from the 90s that Sylvester Stallone did. Yeah, probably just as well. Or you may even never have read the comics. Let me round things out for you. Judge Dredd lives far in the future. He lives in a place called Mega City 1, which is one of the last non-irradiated places in North America. There are about 3 or 4 cities, all of them gigantic, and humanity is smooshed into them. There's a few other cities. There's one in Japan. There's one called Britsit. There's even a Scottish colony up north, and there's a Russian one. There's an Australian one. But basically, most of the stories centre within Mega City 1 itself. And in Mega City 1, you don't have cops and courts anymore. You have the judges, and they basically patrol the city and they pass judgment there and then. You kill someone, they're there to pass judgment. You rob from a shop, they're there to pass judgment. And anything can be done. You could spend a little bit of time doing community service, although mostly what you end up doing is doing time in the cubes, which is basically their form of prison. It's basically solitary confinement. Or they can even go right up to killing you, right out there and then. Judgment is fast, it's brutal, and so is the world that the judges live in. I mean, we're talking about a post-apocalyptic world. In the movie with Sylvester Stallone, that was then changed basically from being a nuclear apocalypse to being an ecological apocalypse. The ecology of the earth had just got knackered thanks to the abuse of mankind. Hey, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Anyway, when it came to the 2012 version of Dredd, they went on a slightly more realistic version of the Judge Dredd uniform and equipment. So gone was the designs from the comics, which all, although admittedly there were some wild variations, they all stuck to similar themes. When Stallone did his movie, it was recognisable as Dredd, and it was recognisable as Mega City 1, and the Justice Department was recognisable as it was, and their equipment mostly was recognisable as what it was, although they had changed things. They had Hollywooded it up. When Karl Urban donned the helmet, oh, things got good, because it paid homage, proper homage to the way it was done in the comics. You see, in the comics, much like how it is with the Mandalorian, Judge Dredd does not remove his helmet, ever, except for a couple of rare occasions where either his face was like blotted out by shadow, or his face was horribly burned and scarred so you didn't actually get to know what Dredd looked like under the helmet because his face was unrecognisable. Obviously later on it got fixed with the technology of the time in the comics. Now, within the Dredd movie of 2012, the technology is not as fantastical as what it was in the comics, but then in the comics you don't really have to worry about a movie budget. So you can do what you like. You can go to space, you can have clones, you can have thousands of judges and an army, you can have an expansive city that basically is bigger than any city on Earth has ever been. You can do what you like in comics. Movies, you've got to scale it down a bit. But even in saying that, Mega City 1 in the Dredd movie in 2012, it was pretty big. And what they actually did was, they used Johannesburg as a baseline, and they just basically digitally altered Johannesburg, and it looked amazing. And this was one of those movies that actually smartly used 3D back in the day, when 3D was the big thing. There's 3D, ah, ooh. That's basically how 3D was. It was never really thought of as a way to like use a narrative. It was just sort of like, woo, and it was a bit showy, and it never did it. But there are two movies, to my mind, that used VR as part of the narrative, as part of the storytelling structure, and actually used it in interesting ways outside of telling the story. And those two movies are Dredd and Tron Legacy. Now, you know I love Tron. Anybody who's been a member of the Zen fam for any length of time knows that your boy loves Tron. Okay, and I've spoken on that before, so I'm not going to walk down that road again. But so in Dredd, they had this drug called slow-mo, and it basically sped up your brain so everything appeared to be going slower, as if you were like seeing the world through the eyes of a pigeon, because pigeons have a faster frame rate in their eyes than we do. So everything looks to be going very slowly when you're on the drug. But you're just processing the visual data faster. You know, that's how it is on slow-mo. And they used that in the movie, and with the fire effects and with some and other things, they used the 3D to sort of give scale and to punctuate particular visual moments in the movie. So even though the whole movie was shot in 3D, you could watch a 2D version and it's fine as it is. It doesn't change it. But when you watch the 3D version, ooh, takes on another layer, it takes on another flavour and becomes more so. And much like with Tron Legacy, one of the best ways to watch that movie is you slap on a VR headset, like your PlayStation VR or your PlayStation VR 2, if you're lucky enough to own one of those, and you sit back or lie back, whatever you like, make that virtual 70-inch screen hovering in front of your face in either a completely black environment or with in like a fake cinema or whatever, and you just kick back, you put on like 3D surround sound headphones and just have the movie engulf you, and it's just spectacular. Anyway, to having a Dredd video game from the Carl Urban version of the movie would be fantastic, because we're probably never ever going to get the second film, which is a shame because Urban wanted to do it and the fans wanted to see it, but the movie never made enough money in the cinema. Now when it came to home sales, the film was obviously a cult classic, but cult classics don't make it with Hollywood, so unfortunately we weren't going to be getting the second movie. But with a game, it could just go all out. You're going to have lawmasters and lawgivers, and see the expansive reaches of the Mega City 1 vision that was given to us in that film. could tell some of the other classic Dread stories, but obviously tone down the technology because it's a much more grounded version of Dread. And I think with the right handling that a 2012 Carl Urban inspired Dread movie video game, you would have something extra special. But I could be wrong. Or perhaps there's a movie that you think is far more deserving of being made into a video game the same way that RoboCop has been recently. If you do, obviously I'd love to know about it down there in their comment section. So get that typey fingers out and give me what for. Oh, Zemblock, you are wrong. This movie is better, and here is why. I would say also do it on your PlayStation or your Xbox, but as far as I'm aware, at least on PlayStation, you can't comment on YouTube videos. Maybe on Xbox you can. Maybe that's an Xbox benefit I'm unaware of. Who knows? Let me know. Can you comment on an Xbox on YouTube? Tell me in those comment sections. I'd love to know. Anyway, hashtag support Scottish YouTubers, and of course, as always, no bother.